I can relate to the anxiety of the newly diagnosed. I understand your fear and terror. That's why I'm careful about what I share in the groups where there are newcomers to Parkinson's. It's not easy. I was so obnoxious when I first started advocacy. I'm surprised. I'm really surprised that one of the old-timers didn't knock my block off. Well, they kind of did. I got put in my place, and rightly so, several times. The first time I got put in my place was at the WPC Portland conference when I suggested that some guy was coming on to me, and his partner had left him in my care, and he would not stop asking me to go upstairs with him. And I was like, what is it with this guy? Because I didn't yet understand the power of our agonist medications. I had no idea. And this guy had seemed relatively normal in his social engagements prior to this 3-hour stretch where he kind of went AWOL. He had taken far too many meds. He was extremely dyskinetic. And I knew enough about the medications by that time in Portland to know that something was off. So in private, when I mentioned it to a couple of friends who had been there for a while, one of them really put me in my place, and he was right to do so. Because to be sanctimonious and judgmental of other Parkinson's patients, when we know what happens with the meds, when we know what it feels like, that ain't right. It wasn't about me. He just needed his meds checked. So if we remove ourselves out of the equation and go back to that 4 agreements of not taking things so personally, it's easy to forgive our brothers and sisters with Parkinson's, because most of us don't even know how to communicate what's happening when something like that occurs. Meaning, when you're off, you can't speak real time with clarity. So let's go back to this piece of suffering where we're reaching out to grab whatever. It's kind of like a drowning person, which, as it turns out, when people are drowning, they're not always so dramatic. We can't see them drowning. That's the point. We think they're okay, and we judge them, or we scrutinize their behaviors based upon our understanding of that kind of activity. Throw that stuff out with Parkinson's. Get rid of it. I've had people send me notes where they're like, you want to see me do a little dance for you? And I'm like, no, check your meds, dude. I didn't report that person or block them or shame them publicly. Why would I do that? Who does that? I didn't talk about them in other support groups or bring up their name or say that they were off. We're all off sometimes. We all experience psychosis at some point. It's coming. So sisters and brothers, and they and them and you and I, if we start judging people in our arena like Vicki Dillon got judged for coming forward about agonists, we are literally shooting ourselves in the foot. We are cutting off our noses to spite our faces, and all those other silly cliches about how we throw the baby out with the bathwater. I could go on, but I'll stop. Got good dad jokes too, by the way. Anyway, my point in making this little announcement is if we could just cut with the judgment. Don't call each other names. Somebody called me a martyr the other day after I got back from the hospital when I couldn't walk or talk, and I was actually quite scared. So I probably was being a martyr. I was terrified, and I needed to constantly remind myself, and I was asking this person for help, reminding me that all things were temporary, that I didn't need painkillers, that I needed to just chill. But what I got from this person was a shaming and a finger wagging and a lecture, and there were stories being told that weren't true on both sides, myself included, because it was a text conversation. Another word to the wise about Parkies: don't take our texts so literally or seriously. I don't know about you guys, but I use voice to text, and if there's music, or if there's anybody else around, or if there's something going on, it's not going to come through clearly. It's probably not going to come through clearly anyway. Because when you're having an off time, your thoughts are kind of jumbled, and you might make these leaps and jump ahead on things that aren't necessarily 100% based in reality. So give each other a little break. We all get paranoid, we get suspicious, we get weirded out by our own depressive qualities, by our own anxieties. Every morning I look out this window and I see a group of kids running down the road, presumably to get to the bus, And there's always one kid, and he's like a little late. He's way up at the top, and he's kind of running down. His hair's all messed up, and he's dropping things, and I'm thinking, that's me. Hey kid, hey peeps. He's my peeps. I'm waving at him. He can't see me, but that's not the point. The point is, what I experience by observing others is that I project myself onto them. You hear what I just said? I don't know this kid, but his behavior sure does match mine. Do I know why he's always late? No, but I often see him walking back up very slowly. And then the mother's car shooting down, to take him to school. Probably getting a lecture in the car, who knows. But it's easy to make up stories. So my final word on this little bit is ask a lot of questions first before making up any stories about what you think people meant. Ask clarifying questions. And when you reach out for help, be careful who you reach out to. It can be traumatizing if what you thought was one of your last lifelines is just not available for whatever reason. And you can't take that personally either, and I get that. Especially when people think that you're being demanding, which is funny because I'm not ever asking people for much. Like, there's no urgency in my text. If I say to somebody, hey, I really want to talk to you, I don't mean right then. And I keep really weird hours. All parkies keep weird hours. I haven't yet met a parkie who's on a strict time schedule, who's a true parkie. Like, I just haven't met one, no matter what your symptoms are, no matter who you are. People are up at 3, they're up at 4, they're up at 5, they're up at 6, and they often don't get that second sleep. Now that's enough to make anyone crazy. So allow a little bit of crazy. Forgive yourself and others. That's all we got. And if you want to be an advocate and support people, all you have to do is stay present. It's not rocket science. We only have so much time in a day. We do what we can. Take care.